The Galactic Concord had ruled the stars for over 300 cycles. Its fleets patrolled the void between galaxies. Its laws shaped civilizations, and its word was final. To the Concord, most species were either useful or irrelevant. Humanity fell into the second category, until recently. For decades, Earth had been little more than a footnote in the Concord's vast archives. A single-planet species, barely spacefaring with primitive fusion drives and clunky orbital stations. The Concord had observed them from afar, as one might watch insects scurry across a rock. They were not a threat. They were not even interesting. But that changed when human ships began appearing beyond their own system. First, they reached Mars and built domed cities. Then they mined the asteroid belt with ruthless efficiency. Within 20 Earth years, less than one Concord cycle, they developed stable, faster-than-light drives. Not borrowed, not reverse-engineered from wreckage. Built from scratch, using math and materials the Concord had never seen. Worse, their energy shields deflected plasma bolts that could melt Xanthari warplate. Their drones moved with eerie coordination, adapting mid-battle to enemy tactics. And their soldiers, small, soft-skinned, oxygen-dependent, fought with a ferocity that made veteran Concord Marines uneasy. In a border skirmish near the Helios Drift, a single human frigate held off 3 Concord patrol cruisers for 6 hours before vanishing into a micro-wormhole no one knew they could create. That was the final straw on the polished obsidian floor of the Grand Conclave Chamber. Deep within the orbital spire of Xylos Prime, the High Council convened an emergency session. 12 species, each represented by a High Arbiter, sat in a circle of floating thrones. Their faces, some scaled, some feathered, some smooth as glass, were grim. At the center of the chamber, a hologram of Sol System rotated slowly, Earth glowing blue and green like a jewel wrapped in thorns. "The humans must be contained," said Arbiter Vrel of the Cathari, his voice a low hum. "They grow too fast. Their minds are unstable. Their history is soaked in blood. They are not yet armed for galactic war," countered Arbiter Mira of the Lumen, her translucent skin shimmering with concern. "Perhaps diplomacy." "Diplomacy failed when we ignored them," interrupted Overseer Nyla Wren, the Concord's chief strategist. She stood at the edge of the circle, not seated. Her rank did not grant her a throne, but her influence did. "Now they think they belong among us. They must be shown their place. Permanently," the vote was called. One by one, the arbiters raised their sigils. 11 in favor, 1 abstention. War was declared. Across the Concord's million worlds, fleet bases roared to life. Shipyards that had slept for decades churned out warframes. Supply convoys stretched across star lanes like silver threads. And from the outer rim, the Ninth Armada assembled, the largest battle group since the Void Reaver Wars. At its head was General Kor Vex. Kor Vex was Xanthari, a species known for discipline, cold logic, and unshakable loyalty. His scales were the color of dried blood, his eyes slitted in amber. He had crushed 3 rebellions, pacified 6 systems, and never lost a battle. When the summons came, he did not question it. He obeyed. Aboard his flagship, the Varelian Dawn, he reviewed the invasion plan. Phase 1, disable Earth's orbital defenses. Phase 2, deploy atmospheric shock bombers to cripple major cities. Phase 3, land occupation forces and install a provisional governor. Total projected timeline, 28 standard cycles. It was efficient, clean, final. But as he studied the human data files, grainy footage of their cities, their wars, their strange rituals of sport and art, something nagged at him. Most species under threat begged. Some fought bravely but broke quickly. Humans, however, seemed to grow stronger when cornered. Their history was a catalog of near-extinction events. Ice ages, plagues, world wars, ecological collapse. And yet they survived. Not just survived, they multiplied. He pushed the thought aside. Sentiment had no place in war. On Earth, the news came not with a broadcast, but with silence. All deep space comms went dead. Then, a single Concord vessel appeared at the edge of the solar system. It did not attack. It simply hovered, broadcasting one message on every human frequency. Surrender your sovereignty. Dismantle your military. Submit to Concord oversight. You have 7 days. In Washington, President Daniel Carter stood in the Situation Room, his face pale but steady. Around him, generals and scientists argued in hushed, urgent tones. Some wanted to negotiate. Others said it was already too late for words. General Lisa Monroe leaned over the table, her eyes locked on the projection of the alien ship. She was lean, with short brown hair and hands that had once rebuilt a broken-down Jeep in the Alaskan tundra, using only a pocket knife and duct tape. She had fought in the Martian dust uprisings and survived a crash landing on Europa. She knew what fear felt like and how to walk through it. "They're not asking," she said quietly. "They're telling. And if we say no, they'll come in force." Admiral Paul Dawson, gray-haired and sharp-eyed, nodded. "Then we say no, and we make them regret it." Carter looked at them both, then at the faces of his advisors. He thought of his daughter, playing in a park just outside the city. He thought of farmers in Iowa, teachers in Nairobi, engineers in Mumbai, all living ordinary lives on a planet the galaxy now saw as a problem to be solved. "We do not surrender," he said. "We prepare." Across the planet, hidden bunkers opened. Fighter squadrons scrambled. Factories switched from making cars to making railguns. Schools drilled students in emergency protocols. No panic, just quiet, grim resolve. Humanity had faced extinction before. They knew how to stand. Back on the Varelian dawn, General Vex received confirmation. Earth had not responded to the ultimatum. By Concord law, that meant refusal. He gave the order. The Ninth Armada began its slow, unstoppable advance toward Sol, but as the stars blurred into streaks of light during the jump sequence, Vex found himself staring at a single image pulled from Earth's public archives. A man, standing alone on a windswept mountain, arms outstretched as snow fell around him. The caption read, "Summit of Denali, first solo winter ascent." Vex did not understand why humans climbed mountains they did not need to climb, why they ran races that served no purpose, why they built music from noise and meaning from chaos, and for the first time in his long career he felt a flicker of doubt. The fleet moved on. Earth waited, and somewhere in the cold dark between stars, a general who had never lost a battle began to wonder if this one could be won. The Concord fleet hung in the void just beyond Mars, a wall of steel and plasma that blotted out the stars. Over 500 warships, each larger than Earth's biggest cities, formed a perfect battle crescent. Their engines hummed with restrained power. Their weapons were charged. All they waited for was the final command. General Cor Vex stood on the command deck of the Varelian Dawn, his claws resting lightly on the obsidian rail. Around him, officers moved with quiet precision, eyes fixed on screens showing Earth's defenses, fragile satellites, outdated missile platforms, and a handful of human warships clustered near the moon like frightened birds. It should have been easy. It should have been over before it began. But Vex hesitated. He had studied human history all night. Not just their wars, but their stories. Their myths of monsters under the bed, of heroes walking into fire for strangers, of entire cities rising from ash. One phrase kept appearing in their old texts: "We are the storm." It made no tactical sense. Yet it unsettled him. Instead of ordering the attack, he turned to his second-in-command, Commander Jal. "Prepare a diplomatic shuttle. Full escort. I will speak with them." Jal's frills flared in shock. "General?" The council ordered immediate pacification. "There is no room for talk." "There is always room," Vex said, his voice low but firm. "If Earth is what our records say it is, then we must be certain before we burn it." Jal bowed, though his eyes betrayed doubt. The order was sent. On Earth, the alert came through scrambled channels. An alien shuttle, unarmed, was approaching the neutral orbital station Tranquility Ring, a joint research outpost halfway between Earth and Mars. It carried a single passenger, General Cor Vex himself. President Carter convened his war council in under 10 minutes. Some advisors urged them to destroy the shuttle on sight. Others saw a trap. But Lisa Monroe spoke up. "If they wanted to kill us, they'd have done it already." "This is a chance. Maybe the only one," Carter agreed. "Send Monroe. She's met aliens before. She won't flinch." 2 hours later, Lisa stood in the central chamber of Tranquility Ring, wearing a simple black uniform with no rank insignia, just a small earth pin on her collar. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and metal. Around her, human guards stood at ease, rifles slung but ready. Across the room, the airlock hissed open. General Vex stepped through alone. He was taller than she expected, his red scales catching the station lights like old rust. His eyes scanned the room slowly, taking in every detail. The flicker of a screen, the tension in a guard's shoulder, the way Lisa stood with her weight balanced evenly on both feet. He stopped 10 paces away. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Vex made a gesture with his right hand, 3 fingers extended, palm down. A Xanthari sign of non-aggression. Lisa nodded and mirrored it with her own hand, palm open. "You came to talk," she said. Her voice was calm, clear. "I came to understand," Vex replied. His translator drone hovered beside him, shaping his guttural words into smooth English. "Your species defies logic. You are soft. You bleed easily. Your planet is violent. Storms, quakes, predators that hunt your young. Yet you spread. You build. You fight back when crushed." Lisa didn't smile. "Earth isn't kind, but it teaches you to be strong, or you die." Vex tilted his head. "How many of your kind die each cycle from natural causes, not war? Not crime, just life." She thought for a moment. "Millions. From sickness. From hunger. From accidents. But we keep going. We invent medicine. We grow more food. We learn." "And your wars?" he asked. "You have fought many." "Yes," she said. "Too many. But we also make peace. Sometimes it lasts. Sometimes it doesn't, but we try again." Vex was silent. Then he asked, "What is the hardest place on your world?" She didn't hesitate. "Antarctica. Frozen desert, no trees. No animals except the ones that can survive extreme cold. Humans live there anyway, scientists. They study ice cores, stars, climate. They stay for months with no sun." Vex's eyes narrowed. "Voluntarily?" "Yes, no one forces them." He turned slightly as if the idea weighed on him. "On my world, only criminals are sent to the ice wastes. And most do not return." Lisa watched him carefully. "You think we're strange?" "We are not strange," Vex said slowly. "You are. To us, survival is order, stability, predictability. Your world offers none of that, and yet you thrive in chaos. That makes you dangerous." "I'm not here to threaten you," Lisa said. "But if you attack us, you'll find out just how dangerous we can be." Vex did not react with anger. Instead, he seemed thoughtful. "Tell me," he said, "has your species ever faced extinction?" "More than once," she replied. "Ice ages wiped out most life. Asteroids hit us. Plagues killed half the population in weeks. But we adapted. We changed. We survived." He looked down at his claws, then back at her. "My people have records of other death worlds. Planets like yours. We tried to colonize one long ago. The air was breathable. The soil fertile. But within a month, our settlers were dead. Not from war. From the water. From insects smaller than your fingernail. From plants that released toxins when touched. We lost 12,000 lives before we fled." Lisa nodded. "Earth is like that. Beautiful but deadly. You have to respect it, or it kills you." Vex was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I have seen footage of your soldiers. One of them was stranded on Gelta 9 during a border clash. No weapons, no rations. For 17 days he lived off alien lichen, trapped burrowers for food, and avoided our patrols by moving only at night. When we found his camp, he had built a signal fire from scrap metal and dry moss. He was still alive when our medics reached him." "He's one of ours," Lisa said simply. "He should not have survived," Vex said. "A Xanthari would have died in 3 days. A Lumen in 2. But you're kind. You do not break. We bend," she corrected. "But we don't break." The station hummed around them. Somewhere a machine beeped. Outside the viewport, Earth hung in the black, blue, and white and alive. Vex finally stepped back. "I will report what I have learned. The attack may be delayed." Lisa held his gaze. "Don't delay it, cancel it. War won't end well for either of us." "I do not make policy," he said. "Only war. But you can choose not to start one." He studied her face as if memorizing it. Then he turned and walked back toward the airlock. Before he entered, he paused. "Your world frightens me, General Monroe. Not because you have weapons, but because you do not fear death." Then he was gone. Back on the Varelian Dawn, Vex did not return to the command deck right away. He went to his private chamber and pulled up every file the Conquered had on Earth. Not just military reports, but cultural logs, weather patterns, disease outbreaks, even children's stories. He read about hurricanes that drowned cities, wildfires that burned for months, and humans who ran toward the danger to save others. He thought of the man on the mountain, the scientist in the ice, the soldier on Gelta 9. And for the first time, he wondered if the Concord had made a terrible mistake. Meanwhile, on Earth, Lisa Monroe reported everything to President Carter. He's not like the others, she said. He's thinking. That gives us time, Carter nodded. Use it well. In orbit, the Concorde fleet remained still. No shots were fired. No orders given. The stars watched in silence as two species stood on the edge of war, and one general began to question whether victory was even possible. General Corvex did not sleep. Xanthari did not need rest like humans, but even by his species' standards, his mind burned with unrest. For 3 full cycles, he remained in his chamber aboard the Varelian Dawn, reviewing data that the Conquered had long buried. It was not classified, just ignored, dismissed as irrelevant, but now it felt like a warning written in blood. He pulled up the old mission logs from the planet designated Xylo 7, a world the Conquered had once hoped to turn into a farming colony. The first landing party reported breathable air, rich soil, and calm weather. They celebrated. By the 10th day, half were dead. Not from enemy fire, from a fungus that grew in their lungs when they breathed the morning mist. By day 20, only 3 remained, and they begged for evacuation. The Concorde never returned. Then there was the report from the scout vessel Kethra's Eye, which had briefly orbited Earth 2 centuries ago. Its captain wrote, "Surface teems with life, but all of it seems armed. Even the plants sting, the animals hunt in packs, the oceans boil with predators, yet the natives walk barefoot through it all." Vex had read that line a dozen times. Barefoot, he called up more footage, a human child no older than 6, calmly pulling a stinging insect off her arm and tossing it aside without crying. A man in a flooded village, swimming through rooftops to rescue neighbors while waters churned with unseen dangers. A woman in a desert sipping from a cactus she had cut open with a knife made of bone. These were not warriors, just ordinary people, and yet they lived as if danger was normal. He summoned his chief science officer, Lyra Vaughn, a slender lumen with silver eyes. "Show me the biological threat assessment for Earth again," he ordered. Lyra projected a glowing sphere into the air. Earth, layered with data. Atmosphere, 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, highly flammable by galactic standards. Gravity, 1.0 g, stronger than most conquered worlds. Pathogens, over 1,400 known viruses, 300 bacteria strains that can kill non-native species in hours. Fauna, includes predators that can outrun, outthink, and outlast most trained soldiers. Flora, many plants produce natural toxins. Even the water carries microbes that would sicken a Xanthari in a day. Vex stared at the spinning globe. And humans live there. Without protection, not only live, Lyra said softly, they thrive. Their immune systems adapt faster than any species we've recorded. Their bodies heal quickly. Their minds rewire under stress. They call it resilience. Vex turned away. The High Council sees Earth as a threat because of its ships and weapons. But they are wrong. The real weapon is the planet itself, and the humans are its children. He made a decision. That evening he addressed his senior officers in the war chamber. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of tactical displays. All eyes were on him. "The invasion will not proceed as planned," he announced. A murmur rose. Commander Joel stepped forward. "General, the Council expects action. Overseer Wren is already drafting reports accusing you of weakness." "Let her write," Vex said. "I will not send our soldiers to die on a death world they do not understand. Not when we have not studied its true nature." He activated the main screen. Footage played. A human soldier alone on a frozen moon during a skirmish near the Helios Drift. His ship was destroyed. His squad was gone. Yet for weeks he survived. He melted ice for water. He trapped burrowing creatures for food. He avoided patrols by moving only during magnetic storms. When Concord scouts finally found him, he was building a transmitter from wreckage trying to call for help. Not for himself, but to warn Earth of the fleet's position. He had no hope, Vex said. Yet he kept fighting. Not for glory. Not for conquest. To protect others. He looked at each officer in turn. Imagine an army of billions like him. On a planet where every river, every forest, every storm is already trying to kill you, we would win the first battle. Maybe the second. But the war? No. We would bleed until there was nothing left. Silence filled the room. Then slowly, Captain Morel of the cruiser. Iron Fang nodded. My great-uncle died on Xylo 7. They told us it was an accident. Now I wonder. Others began to speak, not in defiance, but in doubt. One officer admitted his son had fallen ill after touching Earth soil during a training drill and nearly died. Another recalled how human-made drones had learned to mimic bird flight to avoid detection, something no AI in the Conquered had ever done. Vex saw it, the shift. Not rebellion, but awareness. He turned to his communications officer. Send a priority message to the High Council. Cite Article 47 of the Conquered Military Code. No campaign shall commence against a confirmed death world without full biostrategic review and approval from the Science Directorate. The officer hesitated. That process could take months. Good, Vex said. Let it take time. Better slow peace than fast ruin. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Carter received a strange transmission. It was not from the Conquered government. It was a data packet, unencrypted, sent from a private channel on the Varelian Dawn. Inside were medical reports, ecological surveys, and historical logs. Everything the Conquered had quietly gathered on Earth over the centuries. Lisa Monroe reviewed it with a team of scientists. They've known all along, she whispered. They just didn't believe it mattered. But now someone did. Back on the flagship, Vex stood once more at the viewport. Earth glowed below, calm and deadly. He thought of the child pulling off the stinging insect. The soldier on the frozen moon. The woman in the desert. They were not monsters. They were survivors. And the galaxy had never faced a species that treated survival like a daily habit. He did not fear them. But he respected them. And in the cold logic of war, respect was often the first step toward peace. The fleet remained still. The stars held their breath. And somewhere between two worlds, understanding began to grow, not through weapons, but through truth. News of General Vex's delay spread through the Conquered like a virus. On Xylos Prime, the High Council erupted in outrage. Overseer Nyla Wren stood before the arbiters, her voice sharp as glass. Vex has betrayed his duty. He cowers before soft-skinned primitives. If we do not act now, Earth will see our hesitation as weakness and strike first. The arbiters were divided. Some agreed with Wren, others, remembering old losses on Death World, stayed silent. But the damage was done. Within hours, a new order was issued. Overseer Wren would travel to the Sol system with emergency authority. If Vex refused to launch the invasion within 48 cycles, she would relieve him of command. Aboard the Varelian Dawn, Vex received the message without surprise. He had expected this. What he did not expect was the quiet support growing among his own officers. Captain Morrell sent him a private note. My crew stands with you. We have seen the footage. We know what Earth breeds, and others followed. Not all, but enough to make Wren's arrival dangerous. When her ship, the sleek and silver Judgment's Edge, docked with the flagship, she came alone, dressed in the black robes of a Conquered overseer. Her eyes were cold, her steps precise. She found Vex on the command deck staring at Earth through the main viewport. You have failed, she said without greeting. I have prevented a massacre, he replied. Of our soldiers or theirs, she snapped. You speak as if humans are equals. They are pests, loud, clever pests. Crush them before they multiply. Vex turned to face her. You have never set foot on a death world, have you, Overseer? I do not need to, she said. I read reports. I trust logic, not fear. Then read this, he said, handing her a data slate. It showed the latest intelligence. Human factories working around the clock, turning scrap metal into railgun rounds. Submarines hiding in ocean trenches armed with new stealth tech. Civilians training in underground bunkers, learning to fight with knives, bows, even their bare hands. One video showed a group of teenagers in rural Canada building a working radio from car parts and a potato. Wren scoffed. Children playing war. They are preparing to die for their home, Vex said quietly. And they will take 10 of ours with them for every one they lose. That is not play. That is fact. She tossed the slate aside. I am taking command. The fleet moves in 12 cycles. You cannot, Vex said. I have invoked Article 47. Only the Science Directorate can override it. Then I will cite you for insubordination and place you under arrest, she said, stepping closer. Your loyalty is to the Conquered, not to your doubts. Before Vex could respond, alarms blared across the deck. A priority message from Earth. It was not a threat. Not a plea. It was a broadcast, sent openly on all frequencies, unencrypted, meant for every ship in the Concord fleet. The screen flickered to life. It showed a man running through a blizzard in Antarctica, pulling a sled loaded with supplies. His face was frostbitten, his breath visible in the air, but he kept moving. Then a woman in the Sahara, guiding a group through dunes during a sandstorm using only the stars to navigate. Then a diver in the Mariana Trench repairing a deep-sea sensor in crushing darkness. Then a firefighter in California, walking into a burning forest to save a trapped animal. No music, no words, just raw footage of humans surviving the impossible. The broadcast ended with a single line of text. "This is not war. This is Tuesday." On the Varelian dawn, the bridge fell silent. Even Wren stared at the screen, her confidence flickering. Vex spoke first. "They are showing us who they are. Not soldiers. Not monsters. Just people who refuse to die." Wren recovered quickly. A trick. Emotional manipulation. But the damage was done. Across the fleet, crews watched the same broadcast. On the cruiser, Iron Fang, soldiers who had mocked humans as weak now exchanged uneasy glances. On the supply vessel, Gleaner's Hope, engineers whispered about how they would last a day in a human desert. Doubt once planted spread fast. Wren activated her comm. "All ships prepare for immediate jump to Earth orbit. Ignore General Vex's orders. I am in command now." But only half the fleet acknowledged. Captain Mirel's voice came over the channel. "Iron Fang remains under General Vex's authority until the Science Directorate rules." Article 47 stands, others followed. One by one, ships powered down their weapons. Not in mutiny, but in caution. Wren turned on Vex, her face tight with fury. "You've poisoned them." "No," he said. "Truth has. And truth is harder to kill than any army." She reached for her sidearm, a ceremonial blade used to enforce overseer decrees. But Vex was faster. His claws closed around her wrist, not hard enough to break, but enough to stop her. "This is not your war to start," he said, "and it will not be your legacy to burn." Guards arrived, summoned by Wren's failed signal. But they hesitated. They had seen the broadcast too. In the end, Wren was escorted to her quarters, not as a prisoner, but as a guest under watch. Her authority was frozen, pending review from Xylos Prime. On Earth, President Carter watched the Concorde fleet's movements through long-range scanners. The formation had broken. Some ships drifted apart. Others powered down. He turned to Lisa Monroe. "What changed?" She smiled faintly. "We reminded them that we don't need weapons to be dangerous. We just need to be human." Back on the Varelian dawn, Vex returned to the viewport. Earth glowed below, quiet and fierce. He no longer saw a threat. He saw a mirror, a world that had forged its people in fire just as his own had, though in different ways. The fleet waited, not for orders, but for wisdom, and for the first time the Concorde did not see Earth as a problem to destroy, but as a mystery to understand. The message from Xylos Prime arrived 3 days later. It was not a command. It was a request. The High Council, shaken by the fleet's division and the flood of reports from officers who had watched Earth's broadcast, had recalled Overseer Wren. In her place, they sent no enforcer, only a single diplomat, unarmed and unescorted, bearing a new directive: negotiate. General Corvex stood in the same chamber on Tranquility Ring where he had first met Lisa Monroe. This time the room was brighter, the tension softer. Earth's delegation arrived first: President Daniel Carter, General Monroe, and Admiral Paul Dawson. They wore no armor, only simple uniforms. No weapons, just the quiet confidence of people who had faced the end and did not blink. The conquered diplomat, Elder Torin of the Lumen, floated in on silent grav pads, his pale form glowing faintly. He bowed low, a sign of deep respect rarely given to non-conquered species. "We come not to conquer," he said, his voice like wind through glass. "We come to listen." What followed was not a grand treaty signing or a dramatic speech. It was a long, careful conversation. They spoke of borders, of technology sharing, of mutual defense. But more than that, they spoke of fear. The Concorde admitted they had feared what they did not understand. Earth admitted they had braced for annihilation. And in that shared honesty, something new began to grow. Vex did not speak much during the talks. He watched. He listened. He saw Carter's hands tremble only once, when describing how he had held his daughter the night the ultimatum came. He saw Monroe's eyes soften when Torin spoke of his own grandchildren on a quiet moon far from war. These were not monsters on either side, just beings trying to protect their own. After 30 hours of talks, the Sole Non-Aggression Pact was drafted. Earth would remain sovereign. The conquered would recognize it as a Death World species, a formal classification that granted special protections under galactic law. In return, humanity agreed to share certain non-military technologies and join a joint task force to monitor real threats, like the Void Reavers raiding the Outer Rim. No one celebrated with cheers. There were only nods, handshakes, a shared meal of Earth bread and Concord nutrient cakes that tasted like chalk, but meant peace. As the diplomats signed the final document, Vex stepped outside onto the station's observation deck. Lisa Monroe joined him a moment later. They stood in silence, watching Earth turn below. "You changed their minds," she said. "No," he replied. "You did, by being yourselves. We expected warriors. We found survivors. There is a difference." She looked at him. "Will your people trust us now?" "Trust takes time," he said. "But fear can end in a moment." Today it ended. Back on the Varelian Dawn, the fleet prepared to depart. Ships that had once pointed weapons at Earth now powered down their cores and aligned for the long jump home. On the bridge, Vex gave his final order. "Set course for Xylos Prime and log this in the ship's history. Here. We learned that strength is not always in the fist, but in the will to endure." On Earth, children played in parks without sirens. Farmers planted crops without watching the sky. And in classrooms, teachers began adding a new lesson. Not just about stars and planets, but about neighbors among them. Weeks later, the first joint mission launched, a small Concord scout ship and a human science vessel, working together to map a dangerous asteroid field near Neptune. The crew spoke different languages, ate different food, and saw the universe in different ways. But when a solar flare threatened both ships, they worked as one to reroute power and shield each other. No orders, no treaties, just instinct. In the years that followed, more collaborations came. Human doctors helped cure a lumen plague using Earth-developed antivirals. Centauri engineers taught humans how to stabilize fusion cores. And slowly, carefully, the galaxy began to see Earth not as a threat, but as something rare. A world that had turned hardship into hope. General Vex never returned to active combat. He became an advisor to the Science Directorate, pushing for new studies on adaptive species. Sometimes he would receive messages from Earth. A photo of Monroe standing on Denali again, older but smiling. A note from Carter's daughter, now a student of xenobiology, asking about Centauri childhood. He kept them all. And on quiet nights aboard his quiet ship, he would look at the stars and remember the day the Concorde demanded war, and how a single truth stopped it. For Earth had not won with weapons or shields. It had won by being exactly what it was. A planet of survivors who built gardens in war zones, sang songs in storms, and never stopped believing tomorrow could be better. The galaxy had come to destroy them. Instead, it learned from them. And somewhere in 1,000 classrooms across 1,000 worlds, young beings now heard a new story, not of conquest, but of courage. Of a soft-skinned species that faced the end of everything and said simply, "Not today." The stars burned on. Peace held. And for the first time in a long time, the future felt wide open.